First, though, as Kemi Badenoch becomes the new leader of the Conservatives, we're asking if she can be the one to save them. What do you think? Love to know. 0207 862 2222. She's promised she can win back voters who deserted the party at the last election. She said she's going to get straight down to business.
Our party is critical to the success of our country. But to be heard, we have to be honest. Honest about the fact that we made mistakes. Honest about the fact that we let standards slip. The time has come to tell the truth, to stand up for our principles, to plan for our future, to reset our politics and our thinking.
Her appointment has been welcomed by her predecessors, quite a few of them. Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, among those who said it's a good thing. Even her opponent, Robert Jenrick, has now urged the members to get behind her. Do you have faith in her? Did she get your vote, Robert?
I did vote for her because I listened to the arguments quite a bit, and I felt she was right to say, before we have policies, we've got to set out what our values are. Because people understand what Labour are all about. They're for the underdog, whether I agree with what they do or not. What is our single message that you can sell on a doorstep? How do we express ourselves? I think we're the party of the ladder of opportunity, but we've got to set out our values first and then work out what our policies are over a number of years. And I think she's got charisma. Incredible charisma. I think she's counterintuitive. She is controversial, but that's good because it makes us relevant and being talked about again. She's a completely fresh face. And don't anyone ever say that the Tory party is racist. They've elected two leaders now with ethnic minority background. But the more important thing, as Kemi said, which I love, she said it on the Laura Kunzberg show, if I'm allowed to mention another programme, she said that actually what members see is not the colour of their skin, but the content of their character, to quote Martin Luther King. And actually, I think that is true. She's there because she's good and charismatic, not because she's from an ethnic minority.
I haven't seen all of her appointments in the shadow cabinet, but it might actually be quite significant. Let's say she brings in Suella Braverman or someone like that. That would send out a signal. What do you think of her?
It would. Well, first of all, just on those appointments, she doesn't have much wriggle room, given that they've only got 120 MPs already. Rishi said he's not interested. Jeremy Hunt isn't interested. James Cleverly, all onto the back benches. She's going to be scrabbling around if she wants to match cabinet member and then front bench member for front. She needs about 80 people to step forward.
Well, that's shadow front bench, but the shadow cabinet, I think she'll find people.
But the entire front
and she
bench
has got very, very good people around them. Around her, they're not household names, but there's this guy who used to be an MP called Lee Rowley, who's probably going to have a senior role, and they're really impressive people that I think will actually help her make sure that her leadership is a good one.
I'm just looking at that picture of her we've got there. Where's that? Is that based in this studio or somewhere else? It looks strangely like our studio. Anyway, okay, fine. I'm just thinking, did she come in during my holiday? That'd be terrible.
She didn't. You didn't miss that.
I didn't miss her.
I think
okay,
you noticed.
Fine. But look, I mean, Robert's making the point, the broad point. You don't need policies at this stage. You need to be likeable. You need to convince people you've got the right values and you'll run things better than the current lot.
First of all, I love her chutzpah. I love her energy. I love her aspirational, go-get-'em front. And her backstory is terrific. You know, she just went for age 16. I want to come to England. I want to absolutely capitalise on what I've got. And she burnt through life. And you've got to respect that. I fully respect her. But I find her somewhat disingenuous. She stood there at the podium talking to the party faithful. We need to own we made mistakes. We've got to recognise we let standards slip. We've got to tell the truth. Then yesterday on Laura Kunzberg, I watched the same interview as you, Robert. She refused to say what mistakes they made. She wouldn't let Laura grill her on former past ministers. She wouldn't explain what the truth was. So we're still getting what I call a fudge.
Okay, but
what she said she didn't think it was good to have a post-mortem on this programme about every single Prime Minister. That's exactly what she said, because I watched the full interview, but she's saying she was accepting that we'd got things wrong in that interview and in her speech on Saturday, and said that's why we've got to set out our values and renew ourselves as a party once again. Okay. And I think she's only been there for 24 hours, so give her a chance.
But she could have gone hammer and tongs at the budget, and rather than doing that, she criticised the fact that Rachel Reeves had flagged up that she was the first ever female chancellor.
She did. That was a little bit of a misstep, wasn't it, to say it was not a very high glass ceiling to break.
Well, she was saying compared to Conservatives. You know, we've had now 4 women leaders, and we've had 2 leaders
But that was just
from ethnic
classic
minority.
waste of time wokeism.
Okay.
She could have dug into the grassroots.
All right,
of the budget.
it's possible, right? Here's the thought, that Labour there's a lot of self-inflicted stuff going on with Labour. It has got so difficult so quickly for Labour, we can't rule out that they may only be in for 1 term.
Well, I think the
It's not
electorate
impossible
now
that she is the next Prime
are really
Minister.
volatile. I mean, I was there in 2019, and I was in a dinner with Boris a few days after the election. I think it was the Saturday night after the election of 2019 at a party, and everybody thought that the Conservatives were going to be in for 10 years. Everybody. And, you know, look what happened.
80-seat majority.
Look what happened. So I think this majority, and if you look at the Labour majorities in individual seats, it's pretty low. I mean, in my old seat, Labour only won it by 2,000 votes. So there is everything to play for if, as Kemi says, we're unified, we set out our values, we deliver on our promises. But I would like our party to be a social justice party as well. A conservative version of social justice, but to actually show that we're going to help the most disadvantaged, because I think that is one of our biggest problems, that the public don't think we want to help those who are struggling.
Let's talk to Sonia in Essex. I'm thinking, could it be near your old stamping ground? Sonia.
Hi there, good morning.
What do you think of Kemi Badenoch?
I like her, but I don't think she's going to do much for, the change for the Conservatives at this point.
Well, because they've just got they're flat on the canvas.
Yes, I like her, but I think sometimes she does sit on the fence. I think she likes to play games. I think she needs to be a lot more, forthright. I just think, they've so far, the Conservatives have fallen so far. I can't see her change it, turning things around in the short term.
Yeah, although, Labour it needs Labour to fall into a hole themselves, and they've sort of seem to be trying to. I mean, maybe this country's very hard to govern. That's probably the bottom line. Thank you, Sonia. Ian in North Ayrshire, tell us what you think of Kemi.
First appearances, she looks like a breath of fresh air. This opening gambit at the lectern, so to speak, saying we've made mistakes, but we're going to be honest and truthful. Now that would be refreshing coming from the Conservative Party, after blustering Boris told a litany of lies to the general public and those in Parliament, his own peers. So I wish her well, but I think she's got an upward climb, trying to restore faith and the massive support of the new party.
But Ian, on the one hand, she's talked about truth and standard slipping, and then the next minute she was sitting live on television yesterday saying actually Boris Johnson was treated quite badly, Partygate was overblown, etc., etc. So if you're suggesting that this isn't more of the same, I kind of worry that it might be.
I know you're presenting a partial picture, because she said the public were really upset about Partygate. She said that Boris got it wrong about the Chris Pincher scandal, the alleged groping scandal. She was very, very clear about what had gone wrong. But what she did say about the Partygate was actually perhaps it was wrong for the government to impose so many penalties, like 6 penalty notices over minor infringements, because that caught members of the government just as much as it caught the public, and the government shouldn't have been breaking the rules. So we need to be very, very clear, not to take out of context what she's been saying.
But she was sort of making excuses for bad behaviour, and that's maybe not where people are at the moment.
I don't think she was. I think she basically said the fixed penalty notices have gone too far, and that's why, and the government shouldn't have allowed themselves to be caught up.
After the break, we're taking more of your calls. Trevor in Hertfordshire. Hi, Trevor.
Hello.
What do you think?
No, definitely not. She won't last a year. She will not last a year as the leader of the Tory party. She comes out with a load of old rubbish half the time.
So, what sort of rubbish do you mean?
Well, look at the way she wouldn't answer questions on the what's name show yesterday, Laura Koonsberg, and the way she had to go at Rachel Reeves.
Oh, well, yes. So to go back on that, she
can't answer questions. I'm sorry. It's a disgrace. It's the same old Tories.
Well, Robert, you go on. You're
obviously,
one of them.
If he says same old Tories,
same old Tories.
Hang on, Trevor. Robert's here. He is
Trevor,
one.
you clearly, obviously, you don't like Tories very much if you're saying the same old Tories. I think she's completely different. She's refreshing. She may be a bit controversial, but I think that's a good thing because she'll get noticed. She's incredibly eloquent, and she's been very clear about that we made big mistakes as a party and that she wants to set out our values and deliver on the promises and also bring unity to the Conservative Party. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and I'll give you a bet that she'll be there well beyond a year.
But I think Trevor makes a valid point. Prior to her election, what was she predominantly famous for? Trying to rescind maternity leave in an ad hoc live interview, saying that we need to sack, was it 10% of all civil servants? I mean, these are almost
What's wrong with
unhinged.
sacking 10% of civil servants?
What's wrong with sack?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, Jeremy.
Well, no, you
This
say
is
it as
the
if
group
we
of
should
people
all agree that it's a terrible thing.
This is the group of people that politicians
again,
have to work most closely with.
This is the thing. I mean, by the way, I was over the moon that J.K. Rowling, who's not a Conservative, but she said, sort of expressed some support for Kemi on her Twitter feed by saying about David Tennant, the former Doctor Who, who said, who was quite critical of Kemi, and she put out the tweet saying, sorry, you're having a hard time, or something like that.
But we know why.
If we can find,
that's because they're all about a woman being a woman.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. On the maternity leave, she was very clear that she's taken maternity leave and supported maternity leave. What she was saying is, again, because you're seeing one side of the equation, she was saying, actually, you've got to be careful about how many regulations you put on businesses. And look at what the new government have just done, hiking taxes on all businesses because it increases costs. And that's what she was trying to say. And then it all got twisted that she was against maternity leave, but she made very clear that she wasn't.
I hear you, but I think an experienced political operator wouldn't have made a gaffe like that.
All right. Trevor, are you happy with this? Has Robert turned your...
No, definitely not. She won't last a year.
She won't last a year.
Let's wait and see.
She'll last a year as a Tory leader.
But what about... Trevor, what about the way Labour's had so many problems, they might lose the next election?
I don't think so. I think you'll see Starmer get it right this time, mate.
OK. Thanks, Trevor. Good shout. I mean, interesting. Gina in London, hi.
Morning, hi.
Hello, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. Enjoying my holiday. So what do you make of Kemi?
I just I think the Tories are using her. I think they're using her to get new votes in. She's different. She looks different, but at the same time, she is a Tory, and they're the same. They're for the rich. So I think they're using her in to get new voters in because they, I don't think she
when you
can
say
save
using
them.
her, the only thing I don't like about that is suggest that she's not got any sort of agency herself, because she's a young woman who's decided she wants to run the Tory party. She's gone for it, and by golly, she's made it. Yeah. What about that?
Well, it can look that way, but the Tory are the Tory. If you look at Theresa May, if you look at Truss, if you look at Sunak, I think they're using the minorities, to get new voters in, to bring back the Tories, to make them look different, but they're not different. The Tories are the Tories. They are for the rich.
Okay, I hear you. We got a lot of...
Another thing, can I just say one more thing, please? Yeah. The Labour Party, they're supposed to be for the working class, variety, it's liberal, and they're not looking that way. So the Tories are coming in and trying to take over from what the Labours are supposed to be doing.
Listen, I've got to take some more calls, but thank you so much. It's so interesting that the Conservatives have got this sort of hangover still from their time in power. Peter in Wolverhampton, hello.
Hello, Jeremy.
Now, we've spoken before, and I'm trying to think which side of the fence you're on.
I'm on both sides of the fence.
Oh, is that painful? Go on. So, are you thinking Kemi's good?
No, I think she's a libertarian. And what that means is she doesn't believe in social and state support for vulnerable and working people. And that's a really dangerous stance to take as a government, that you'd want to cut social support.
The maternity row, she did row back on it. Well, she seemed to say that we shouldn't be paying maternity pay as a government because you should be able to, if you should have kids only if you can afford them.
And what was interesting yesterday, she was like, we all want to help the NHS. At the same time as she said, we've got to put business first and then you fund your public sector. Does that mean we have to hang around and die a bit for a couple of years before we get this business
what she was saying
Go
is
on.
that if you tax business too much, then as the current government have done, then and increase our debt, which is they've increased debt by billions and billions of pounds. What that means is less money going into the government. It also means that our interest rates go up because we've got the cost of debt to paying. Instead of paying money for public services, we're paying debt. So you've got to cut your cloth accordingly. Help business create wealth, especially small business. Then you get lots of money for the NHS. But she's never ever said she doesn't want social security support or welfare support.
She made a mistake. Maybe that just shows she's a bit accident prone.
That's
I don't
my
know.
worry.
Yeah.
And just to remind you, when John Major lost the election to Tony Blair in 1997, it was over a decade, wasn't it? It was an extraordinary long time. And they went through William Hague. Do you remember him on a soapbox at the pound coin?
Ian Duncan Smith, Michael Howard.
Yes, Michael Howard, to eventually find David Cameron. That's a sleeping with a lot of people before you get to the right huh?
Yeah, well, William Hague, it's a very good point there, because William Hague later said being Tory leader after the 97 defeat was the night shift.
Yeah, William Hague backed Kemi.
Yes.
And I don't think it's going to be like that.
It may not be.
She's going to learn on the way. Mrs. Thatcher, when she was in opposition in 1975, 1976, she wasn't the Mrs. Thatcher that we saw at Prime Minister. It took a number of years. But I think that over time, I think Kemi will be pretty impressive.
We'll see. We'll see. Things move fast. They can move fast for Labour and for her as well. Thank you for all your calls. Later, we'll be asking if we should...